Wow, just out here soaking up the vibes. It is amazing to be with you. Welcome to Coalesce 2023. If you're joining us for the first time, it's great to have you. I think you'll find that Coalesce is a bit of a different industry conference. I don't know about you, but I have never been to a conference before with a sparkle station. I don't see anyone with sparkles yet, but I will have them later today. If you were in New Orleans with us last year, welcome back. My challenge to you over the next 3 days, find a way to be helpful to someone. Welcome someone into a conversation, share a story, make an intro. Coalesce is a place that all of us come together to create an experience that is quite unlike any place that I've ever been to before. Thank you for all that you do to create that magic. This morning, I want to answer 4 questions. Why are we here? Where have we been? Where are we now? And where are we going? We're here because we believe that data is powerful, and we care about everyone in an organization being able to use it. DBT is not about empowering an elite few. We believe that all data practitioners are fully capable of building mature production systems that create and share knowledge. We also believe that data practitioners still have a lot to learn from software engineers. DBT continues to bring best practices from software engineering into data, which is something I want to return to in a little bit. When Drew and Connor and I built the first versions of DBT, we imbued it with these beliefs. DBT treats every data practitioner like the skilled professional you are, adapting mature practices from software engineering to create a best-in-class data workflow. In the 7 years since then, we've all been on quite a ride. Today, there are 30,000 organizations using DBT in production. The community has become truly global. This is fun. I found this out recently. In September alone, DBT built 4.3 million distinct models for a total of 1.1 billion model invocations. If you added up all of the DBT execution time in September, 653 years. Isn't that kind of cool? The initial ideas behind DBT apparently have resonated. In a way that I never would have anticipated 7 years ago, DBT has shaped what it looks like to do data work today. Now, there is, of course, a lot left to do, and I want to get back to that. But first, I want to spend a minute talking about the journey that we, DBT Labs, have been on over those same 7 years. It's been an unusual one. The first 3.5 years, we were Fishtown Analytics. Fishtown's the neighborhood that I lived in Philadelphia. We built, I heard it, Fishtown. We built and iterated on the first versions of DBT. We used it ourselves as consultants, helping companies implement the modern data stack. We learned a new way of working right alongside you. Eventually, we raised money. The community had gotten so big that a tiny little baby consulting business couldn't support it. After this, we ramped up the team, especially engineering. We grew from 5 to 50 to 100 engineers over the course of the next 3 years. As the engineering team grew, we matured each of our products. DBT Core became more performant, more consistent, more well-documented. DBT Cloud is hardened with investments in infrastructure, scaling, identity, auth, APIs, RBAC, audit logging. With these investments, DBT, always a good choice for small teams, was now increasingly the choice for the Global 2000. Over the course of this journey, our business has grown fast, which is kind of cool. But honestly, things have changed so quickly, I think I haven't done a good enough job of painting that bigger picture, of explaining where we are trying to go here. So I'm going to take a couple minutes to do that. There are three things that I am focused on today: sustainability and stewardship, open source, and cloud innovation. First, my goal is to build DBT Labs into a long-term sustainable business. That means we have to keep growing. It means we have to be profitable. I care about this because it's the only way that we can continue to steward the DBT community over the very long term. I believe that we're still in the early days of the DBT journey. If you're here, it's because you've seen the dramatic change that typing DBT run can make on your careers. And there's orders of magnitude more data practitioners who haven't yet typed those 6 letters. Second, I care about open source. I care about open source as a way to drive standardization. DBT has become the standard for data transformation in the modern data stack. The benefits of this for the entire ecosystem are huge. This standard means that it's easier to hire people with the right skills. Most modern tooling integrates directly with DBT. There are tons of community-maintained libraries for working with DBT. And whatever problem you run into, somebody solved it before. The DBT standard is made possible by open source software. I remain committed to the Apache 2.0 license. DBT Core will continue to be licensed under Apache 2.0, and we will continue to invest real dollars in maintaining, improving it for the benefit of everyone in the community. Third, I want DBT Cloud to be the best way to write, run, and operate DBT. As an industry, we've now seen 3 decades of commercial open source. And there's some problems that open source solves really well. There's some problems that it doesn't. I'm excited to create a more seamless experience for DBT developers. Excited to create products that allow you to understand the state of your DBT investment. I'm excited to enable teams to scale DBT to hundreds and thousands of DBT developers, and provide SLAs and operational maturity that simply don't exist in data engineering today. All this requires more than open source software. It requires cloud innovation, cloud infrastructure, and best-in-class usability. As we build towards the future of DBT, these are the types of problems we are imagining solving with DBT Cloud. Sustainability and stewardship, open source and open standards, cloud innovation. We can't do any of these things by themselves. We have to do them all. And we can't do any of it without working hand in hand with you, DBT customers, partners, and the entire DBT community. Okay, so zoomed way in, we zoomed way out, and I want to zoom back in. I want to talk about what we've been focused on for the past year. Our theme that you're going to hear a lot about this week at Coalesce. It's complexity. Something really small, but pretty meaningful ended up happening to me about a year ago. I had a change that I wanted to make in our internal analytics. I fired up DBT, I pulled the most recent code, ran a DBT build to initialize my dev environment. First thing I noticed, holy shit, there are a lot more models than there used to be. It had been a little while since I'd written some DBT code. We'd grown the data team, and we now had well over 1,000 models in our project. This is just a small portion of our DAG. The second thing I noticed is that getting up and running in this new, more complicated code base was kind of hard. In a lot of ways, developing in this larger project felt exactly the opposite of what writing DBT code in the early days had felt like. It's kind of slow. It was ungainly, unpleasant. I didn't love it. It turned out that I wasn't alone in having this experience. This graph shows the distribution of DBT project sizes. In the early days of DBT, a large project was 150 models. A couple years in, maybe that was like 500. Today, a large project is 1,000 models or more. And look around, 5% of you work in projects that are 5,000 models or more. The size of a DBT code base isn't in and of itself a problem. Software engineers maintain larger, more sophisticated code bases all the time. The problem isn't lines of code, it's complexity. The question is, how do we flatten this line? How do we make our DBT investment scale without having complexity spiral out of control? Software engineers have tools to do exactly this. With the right software architecture, more mature systems are actually easier to work with, not harder. They have great APIs, great documentation, great developer experience. But this time last year, DBT didn't yet have those tools. And without them, we consistently saw complexity drive user pain. Lower quality, lower speed, user frustration. This complexity tax has become a real pain for DBT's most advanced users. I believe that the solution to this problem comes from the same place that all of DBT's best ideas have come from: stealing from software engineers. Now, I have to apologize in advance. If you've been to Coalesce before, you might know that I like to play amateur historian. In past keynotes, I've talked about the history of the railroad, the telegraph, the Second Industrial Revolution, and I think in my favorite one, the history of the nervous system. So forgive me if I digress for just a minute. I promise I'll bring it back around. Okay, here we go. Early days of the computer industry, most work was done by individuals. These folks were lauded as heroes or geniuses. They explored a new frontier. My favorite view into this world is a book called The Soul of a New Machine. It tells the 1970s story of how a small team at Data General built literally an entire computer, hardware and software, from scratch. Over and over again, the challenges were met with individual heroism, long hours, and a lot of burnout. There was honestly, in this book, there was honestly almost none of what we today would call collaboration. But as systems got more complex, heroes didn't scale. Anybody who started your career in the 80s or 90s, you know what this is. The industry evolved processes to manage this complexity. In the 80s and 90s, building software started to feel more like working in a factory. The problem was specified, broken up, and assigned out. Gantt charts ruled this era, and the dominant methodology became known as waterfall. Waterfall worked, but it was expensive, and it had high failure rates. This way of building systems was fragile, uncreative, slow. This was kind of the state of the world until the early 2000s, when the internet forced us to build software at greater speed and greater scale. Industry lore says, the story goes like this. Amazon software architecture in the early 2000s was hitting real scale challenges. Their engineering team kept growing, but velocity was down. Growing the team just ended up increasing coordination overhead. Jeff Bezos, never timid, dropped the hammer. Moving forwards, all software systems would be constructed as services, and and they would communicate with one another over the network via interfaces. They went all in on service-oriented architecture, velocity increased, and this approach ended up leading to AWS and the cloud. Now, SOA is important to this story, but what it unlocks is potentially just as important: the two-pizza team. Now, if this is a new term for you, it means exactly what it says: a team that can be fed by two pizzas. The most important principles of the two-pizza team are: every team must be able to push code directly to production. Every code base is responsible for exposing interfaces for other teams to build on top of. And each team owns the entire lifecycle of their product, including maintaining code in production. Two-pizza teams empower small groups of humans to innovate at speed, and they allow cross-team collaboration to be governed by APIs instead of Gantt charts. They are the core organizational primitive that allows large groups to move fast and with high quality. Okay, heroes, to software factories, to decentralized teams. These evolutions have shaped our modern digital era. The tooling to empower decentralized teams, everything from programming primitives to Git, to Docker, to GraphQL, to Agile, feature flags, DevOps. Every last little bit of it has helped us do three things simultaneously: quality, velocity, and sophistication. The consistent mandate: produce more sophisticated systems, faster, and with higher quality. And software engineers have done exactly that. What if analytics engineers could do the same? We spent the past year talking to customers about exactly this problem. Almost every data leader I've talked to wants to empower their teams to own their own data products. And so we got to work. Our goals: two-pizza teams, owning their own code, exposing interfaces for other teams that are trustworthy. And the entire system has to be visible and governable. We've spent most of the past year on this. We've come to refer to it as DBT Mesh. DBT Mesh isn't a single feature. It's a way of architecting your DBT DAG and your workflows that enables decentralized ownership without losing visibility and control. It borrows ideas from, is not the same as, data mesh. And some of our largest customers have been developing in this paradigm for a couple months now. And you'll hear from Kaylee and Ben at Fifth Third Bank on this in a few minutes. We covered a lot here, from our collective history to my priorities right now, to why the DBT community needs to move towards distributed, empowered teams. My hope is that you're as excited about this future for analytics engineering as I am. To go deeper, I want to bring up Luis Maldonado. Luis joined us this year as our head of product, and he knows a little something about two-pizza teams, having just come from AWS. Now, y'all, this is Luis's introduction to the DBT community, so I really hope that you can make him feel welcome. Luis, come on out.
Good morning, everybody. I am thrilled to be having my first Coalesce and sharing it with what seems like a pretty impressive sized group of our customers, our partners, and of course, our community. So thank you. Thank you for having me. I know I haven't, since I just joined, as Tristan mentioned, I've just joined this summer, so I'm still getting to know many of you. But I'm looking forward to spending this week with you and getting to know you more and learning about your work. So today, I want to talk about our work. I want to put a little spotlight on that and how we're helping you with yours. Now, when people ask me what I do for work at a party or something, I'll answer, I'm a builder. I build products. Who else here would consider themselves a builder? We have any builders? Where are they? Few. Wow, just a couple. More than I would have expected. Because the reality is, we're all builders. We build products, we build teams, and we build enterprises. So all of you really are builders. And when we're successful, what happens? Our work brings complexity. Now, Tristan just mentioned how the complexity is building out in your work with DBT. And so I'd like to examine that a little bit. I'm going to return to a picture of the DAG, a little smaller version than the one he was showing of ours. And it serves as a great way for us to look at complexity. It serves as a great model for understanding the problem. So you might start out with a picture that looks like this, and generally that works pretty well. Maybe you're a small team, maybe you're an individual developer, but pretty soon you start adding some team members, you start adding use cases, and sure, this might still be manageable for a little while, but then your work catches on and people love what you're doing and they want to do more, and more people want to get involved. And so before you know it, this picture becomes a lot like the one that Tristan showed you. And this is complexity. This is what we mean by we need to help you with complexity. So, what did we do? We did what any good builder would do. We broke down the problem, and we took it into its constituent parts, as a good builder would do again, to figure out how we can solve this complexity problem at multiple levels. So, borrowing from a bit of a social science framework, we looked at it in 3 ways: at the individual level, the team level, and then the organization level. And so I'm going to describe how we're helping you at each one of these levels. But pretty soon you'll see how they all really build upon each other, and they actually come together to solve the full problem. So let's start with foundation at the developer level, the single level of complexity. Now, developers, I know you're out there. You focus on code. You focus on writing really good, efficient code. You focus on building your data products. And you also focus on your workflows. So, we're developers. We need a little bit of complexity, and that's okay. That's actually what drives us and makes us creative. But complexity in our workflow, that's not good. Nobody wants that. So, what do we do about it? Take a look at any software development lifecycle. This is one example of one. Many of them are a bit more complex than this, as you can imagine. But the idea is we want to make sure that you're getting through your development cycle as quickly as possible. And so you need to streamline your flows to be able to get through each one of these phases. And if you're doing agile or you're doing iterative, you're probably going through multiple of these all the time. So even more reason why these have to be really quite efficient. Now, we understand the complexity of these workflows. We understand you have a lot to do. And we've been trying to provide tools that help you get through these, iterate quickly. So we've been looking at some of these in order, and what I want to do is show you some of the ways that we've been helping with this kind of workflow complexity and how we're helping you. So let's start with DBT Core. It goes without saying that our developers love Core. It's the technology that started us back in 2016, and honestly, it's what brought me here to the company as well. Core gives you a really great and simple way of running your transformation code, and you can run it on a server, you can run it right on your desktop. So Tristan showed you just a minute ago the exponential growth in the number of DBT projects. I think it's phenomenal. So we are humbled by all of your loyalty and all the contributions that the community have provided for our solution. So we're committed to continuing to invest here, as Tristan mentioned, and we're going to keep giving you new capabilities that will help you with your development workflows. So let's look at version 1.6, which we just recently released. I think it was in July. And actually, since then, we followed up with 5 additional minor releases. And all told, there's a ton of new work in here, a ton of updates. So if you look at it, I think from several different levels, there's 49 new features. I went and counted these up because I had to go find out myself. But 49 new features, including some heavy hitters here, like materialized views, retry from point of failure, and model cloning. There were 114 fixes, including error and warning reporting messages, improving your predicate pushdown, and improvements to partial parsing. Say that twice. There were also 35 new improvements, what we call under-the-hood improvements, things you don't have to worry about. They just happen for you. So we're doing cleanup. We're making sure our memory footprints are nice and giving you the right controls. So great time for you to go invest in upgrading, I would say. If you haven't already upgraded to version 1.6, upgrade to the latest version to get some of these capabilities. All right, so now Core was built as a stateless standalone tool, right? And over the years, we understood and saw your projects kind of increasing in complexity. And in some ways, there were things that you needed that Core couldn't do alone. Many of you are building complex applications, complex data projects, and so you need additional accelerators for this workflow. You maybe need an IDE to be able to do your code development. You need continuous integration for those little cycles and iterations that I mentioned. And you need things like monitoring. You need continuous automation, all these things that help you get through more than just a standalone tool would provide. So we created DBT Cloud in 2019 to address these problems. And we've been working hard to improve it ever since. So now I want to talk about how DBT Cloud is providing these additional accelerators and give you an idea of what we're up to lately. So we'll start with one of my favorites, because as I said, a former developer. This one gets me fun. One of the things that we've been working on is continuous integration, or like I think it's best known as CI/CD. Some people call it continuous development. It's really a DevOps practice that allows you to merge and iterate on your code really quickly so that you're reducing your iteration cycle times. Now, we've been offering CI/CD solutions since quite a while now, and we knew that this was a key problem that we could help solve. So we continue to invest in it. In the past few months, we were taking a look at sort of the user experience and some of the things that we're doing in this space, and we knew that we could do a little bit better for you. So I'm going to talk to you about a few of the things that we're doing here, just to give you a sense of how the CI solution and delivery is actually evolving. So one of the first things you see here is that in the user experience, we've separated out deploy jobs from CI jobs. It makes it a lot easier for you to decide which one of these you're using. They come with defaults that are automatically set up for you and best practices. It makes it a lot easier for you to use your CI/CD jobs. Next, we wanted to make sure that you're never wasting cycles on building and testing code that hasn't been changed. So starting with the latest version here, we actually defer to an environment, not just a job. And that means that we'll do the diffs against a PR when it's running, so that you know that you're not pulling out things that have not combined and not been run already. So it makes it much more efficient for you than deferring to a job. It's also a great example of how we're helping you save money, and you don't have to execute all these unnecessary steps. A couple more on the CI side. When we do detect that you've made pushes, we can actually now stop and cancel any in-flight and stale checks. So again, this saves you time, reduces that cycle time, so you're not rerunning things that are unnecessary. And CI jobs now no longer count against your run slots. So you never have to block a production run again with your CI jobs. Now, on the deployment side, we're doing quite a bit as well here. I just grabbed a couple things for you. I mentioned the retry that we add into Core. That's now in Cloud as well. So that means you can retry from your point of failure, and you're not rerunning the whole entire job again. Once again, yes, absolutely. Love that. Applause is great. So saving you execution costs, and again, kind of saving you money. So if you want to learn more about this, we have a whole session dedicated to it. I just barely touched on it, a little spotlight. So at 1:30 is a session called Better CI for Better Data Quality. Please check that out. All right, now I want to talk about the IDE. So, many of you love the IDE. You can build, run, test all right from your browser, right? Last year, I think we spent a lot of time focusing on performance and reliability. And then this year, we turned our focus back to production, back to how we can help you with improving some of your cycles. So some of the things that we've been up to lately is really looking at user experience, making it easy for you. The first thing I mentioned here is that we have little toggles here for defer to production. So when you see new capabilities being added, it's really natural in the cloud and just makes it easier for you to take advantage of these new functions. We also are working on, well, besides dark mode, which I love as we transition here because everybody loves dark mode, but we're also making it easy to manage dependencies. So now with 1.6, we're actually doing dependency management for you, so you don't have to run deps anymore. It's a great way for you to save time. We've also integrated SQL linting and formatting using SQL Fluff and SQL FMT. Makes it natural and easy for you to make sure you're running your best practices. So all this is built in. These are the types of things that we're making our IDE more approachable, more usable for your users. All right, now, I know, and I think we all know, that some developers prefer to code, test, and build in your own environment, and that is totally okay. Those tools are great. They support your workflows, and we totally support you. The challenge is that our cloud product did not support you. So you weren't able to use a lot of these great features that we talk about in the cloud product. Well, I'm happy to say that's no longer going to be a problem, because I'm happy to announce that we're now launching the DBT Cloud CLI. Awesome. Love it. I wish there was a ton to say about it, because basically this is the same CLI that you know and love. It's the same familiar interface, but it provides the flexibility of both worlds, kind of the best of both worlds. You've got the flexibility that you need to run whatever tools you're running, and environments, code editors, and now it's backed by the cloud, so you get all the power of the cloud features. So really excited to see this in your hands and be able to really extend your current workflows and be able to use your tools. But you can also be the hero with your security and compliance teams, because it does come with cloud authentication. It has managed versions to make it easy to roll out, and it's got a simple installation for self-service. So excited. I sound like everybody's pretty excited about this one. Looking forward to hearing what you think, and tell us more. Actually, one pointer here, the cloud development experience will tell you more as well. So all the things I didn't talk about in the CLI, you'll see there as well. All right. So now let's go to the next level of complexity, the team level. Now, the fact is, there are a few lone wolves of you out there that are always developing alone, but honestly, most of us end up building together. And as we work and we collaborate, we end up with new challenges. Things change. You know, it was easier for you to manage just a single workflow of your own, but now you've got new challenges when your partner's around you. So first of all, you're not the only person in the sandbox, right? Your workflows have to be coordinated. You've also got shared development, which means that your work depends on other people's work depends on you. And then collaborating, as great as it is, oftentimes it means compromising. And that means you have to have the same platforms, the same tooling that services a large group of people. Now, this type of environment can create complexity for everyone. And so we wanted to see what can we do here. And I think you need different types of accelerators when you're looking at collaboration. You still have your main development cycle, and you still have to make sure that that's efficient. But now wrapped around it is bringing in all of your shared, your sort of this shared environment where it brings these new challenges. So now it's a different set of accelerators that you need. Typically now you need things like shared constructs, documentation, metrics, things that everybody can kind of share and understand together. You need more context, which is information about your development resources. And it probably goes without saying that the platforms need to support all of you. And so you need this ecosystem of support for all of your different types of platforms. Well, we've been providing collaborative solutions for quite a while now, and that includes things like DBT docs, our lineage, which gives you information about where things are in your DAG, and adapters in the ecosystem. But we have a lot more to do, and I want to tell you a bit about what we've been doing recently. So I just mentioned docs. I thought we'd start there because it's a great collaborative tool. And in fact, many of you are using it. We did a check just recently, and we saw that 82% of our cloud customers are generating docs, and over 40% have active users. So clearly, it's a tool that's working. It's a great way for you to not only share information with your developers, or your code developers, but it's also a great way to work with your consumers, so your data consumers can see what's there. Now, as the projects get more complex and you start needing more information, you see that the developers' needs start to evolve. And actually what we're seeing is that you now want to see more than just sort of the docs of the project. Now you're looking for things like operational health, execution times and failure rates of what's going on inside the project. You're looking for data quality information, whether a project is, has passed its test or it meets your best practices. And it goes without saying also that, this has to scale. So as you build larger and larger projects, this can't slow down. It can't take you a long time to generate this information. So we were thinking about this a lot, and we took all these things into consideration. And we really thought that the answer for this is to provide you with a new experience. And so I'm excited to say that new experience we're launching today is called DBT Explorer. DBT Explorer is a new cloud experience for discovering, understanding, and sharing your DBT projects. This new interface, it's got several components I'm going to talk to you through, but basically it's really focused on the dynamic state of your projects. So yes, it does provide some static information similar to what docs can provide, but it goes even beyond that. It helps you understand what's the status of my whole project and all the information within it. I can understand things like my ownership, intended use, and it gives me an amazing, because I love graphs, visual experience for exploring this. So I'm going to walk you through some of the features, and we're going to take a look at a demo. So first feature, search. It's built right in, very natural. You'll see we've got a search bar right up on top. Makes it easy for you to just keywords or selectors to be able to find resources that are interesting. And then it returns sort of an index-like set of results that you can really easily scan through and drill down into to find information that you're looking for. These resource pages that the results return, they're specific to each resource. So depending on what you're looking at, you're going to get a lot of information. I'm going to show you this in detail, but you can see static information. You can see dynamic information about that resource, things like execution time, success rates that we'll see. And then our new lineage graph, and this is the exciting one, like I mentioned. It's a really fun way of kind of drilling down, zooming in, zooming across, zooming out. It just really makes it easy for you to answer questions kind of in this nice visual way. So I have a little demo for you, and I thought we'd take a quick peek. All right, so here's an opening page. You see I'm going to go right into the start and search for something. I'm looking for orders. There's one of the resource pages that I described, and you can see we've got lots of information here for you, including the code, the columns that the model has. You can even pivot, look at some of the tests. So you see that there. This is a test resource page, and I can do that also for exposures. So if you want to go see how your model's being used, you can actually go and see the quality and freshness along with other details there. Now, at any point, you can open up and expand the lineage, and you can see, where this end user, this exposure is being used. You can see it all the way up to sources, and if you have metrics, of course, those are there available for you as well. Now, one of the things that's great, I think, if you look at the top-level view, you can actually drill down kind of right into the project in a visual way, and this is where you can select and understand and drill across and drill down. It's a really easy interface for you to understand what's there. We do also have an administrative interface that we're developing out that's a little bit more tabular. So if you just want to see, here are the constructs, here are the public methods that are available, you can kind of navigate that way as well. So that is a super quick peek at what it looks like. We actually have a whole session about this tool and about collaborating and some of the tools that we have for collaboration. So at 11:30, please come check out Scaling Collaboration with DBT Cloud, and you're going to learn a lot more about DBT Explorer. So I'm excited about it. I hope you will as well. All right. I do want to talk about another shared construct, and that's the semantic layer. Now, 2 years ago, we set a vision that DBT really should know about metrics and semantics. And then last year at Coalesce, we launched the preview of our semantic layer. So the semantic layer is it's meant to be an experience for sharing and defining metrics. It really makes it a lot easier for your teams to share same definitions, same code for concepts, business concepts like revenue and customer. Now, the problem space turned out to be really interesting to our customers, and so much so that we decided to join forces with the team at Transform, which is the founders of the metric flow semantic layer engine. And the team joined us, and they joined in February, and since then they've been hard at work integrating the metric flow engine into our semantic layer and allowing us to sort of level up the experience. And so I'm excited to announce today that we've got the general availability of the updated semantic layer, and now it's powered by metric flow. Yeah, very exciting. So the metric flow engine is pretty amazing, and it's actually given us ability to provide all kinds of new features. I'm going to highlight a few of them, but it's really exciting to see how these two solutions have come together. The first thing, probably the most exciting, is we now support joins. Dynamic joins are now supported. What this means and why we're saying dynamic joins is that you tell us the keys, give us the keys to your tables, we'll do the traversals for you in real time, at query time, and we build the semantic model on that for you. So really exciting way to get those joins supported. I know that many of you who started with our initial version of semantic layer, that was a key request. I was glad to provide that for you. We also have a number of new complex metrics types. Now, when I'm saying complex this time, I'm not talking about complexity that we're talking about here today. Think more like composite types. So things like cumulative metrics, derived metrics, ratios, things that you can take metrics and put together. Really, really great way of bringing these types of metrics together without having to do a ton of SQL. Because honestly, we're actually generating the SQL for you, and that gives you the guarantee that it's going to be optimized and it's legible, so you can actually see what's going on. We've also expanded the APIs. So besides JDBC, we now are supporting GraphQL and Apache Arrow. These are frameworks that many of our developers are using in lots of places, frankly, and so this makes it a lot easier for you to consume the metrics layer and use some of the work that you have there directly right in the interfaces that you're used to using. So there's a lot more coming too. The roadmap is just as exciting. We're working on a caching layer to make things even faster. We've got more integrations coming. I won't keep going into it. I think the best thing is for you to take a look at the new look semantic layer session. That's at 12:30. Roxy and Nick from our product team are going to give you a pretty entertaining view on semantic layers and give you a lot more depth into what's new. Now, before I move on from the semantic layer, I do want to talk about our ecosystem. So when it comes to integrations, we've got both platform and our analytics partners. It's important to make sure that the full stack works very naturally, it's very familiar to you, regardless of the type of tool that you're using. So we're working hard with these partners. They've done amazing work. We've got a phenomenal set of demos, I think. I'd love to show them all to you. I'm not able to show them all, but the point is really they're so natural, they should just feel at home. So actually, I think I do have one screenshot just so we can take a look here. Those of you who are Tableau users will probably recognize this very simple screen that you're used to. What you see here is that on the left side, all of the orders, all of these, in this case, orders, all the metrics that have been defined, all the metadata is right there for you to be able to grab, drag and drop, slice and dice, put it into your reports, and then it's so natural for you to continue doing your charting, building your dashboards, just makes it easy. And that's just one example. All these partners are here They're in the exhibitors booth, so please come take a look at their demos. We'll also be showing some of this work at the session as well. All right, and while I'm talking about ecosystem, I wanted to maybe just take a quick moment about talking about our adapter ecosystem. Because as I mentioned, collaborating can mean compromising, but we want to make sure we've got you covered in many different areas. So we continue to work with our platform partners here. We're making sure that these integrations are fully feature-rich, that they work well for you, and they're supporting your use cases in these platforms. So I want to thank all these partners. They're also here. Please check them out and come take a look at some of their work. I'd also like to announce a new partner coming soon. We're actually just been working with teams at Microsoft for 2 new adapters that are coming. So you're going to see an adapter for Azure Synapse Analytics and Microsoft Fabric. Both of these are in preview right now. They're in private preview, but they'll be available very soon, so please check back. All right, now I want to talk about the final level of complexity, coming to the highest level, which is at the organization level. So we talked about teams, and a sure sign of team success was that other teams want to use your work, right? I mentioned how this starts growing and feeding on itself. So you do something well, and then others want to leverage it, right? They want to start using your resources and your pipelines. They want to build on those constructs that you've created. They want to leverage and adopt your processes as well. So maybe, you started out as a central team, and you started kind of feeding out pieces and bits of your work to teams. Maybe this happened organically. You didn't really intend to be sort of the centralized team, but before you know it, you now are, and now you're serving the business. The challenge here, though, is how do you manage that now that you've got this bigger, broader responsibility? So maybe you put some structure in place. Maybe you have some roles and responsibilities, some division of labor, some coordination mechanisms, maybe some shared infrastructure. But even with these best practices, what you're going to find is that you've got new challenges that come with scale. With all the good intentions that you have, you end up building a shared infrastructure, and it's meant to be used by all these stakeholders, and it gives you that sort of control. It's a nice way of having one single place where you can make sure everybody's work is together, it's all coordinated, and it just works. Now, the problem is that this monolith, sort of what you've created, now can grow. And I think we've seen pictures of this several times now, that this becomes a bottleneck as you grow. And so all of a sudden, each time someone wants a new data source or they want a new aggregate, each of these elements that you're adding takes longer and longer to build, and that's frustrating to everybody. It also becomes difficult to monitor. It's hard to watch quality because you have so many more hands in it. You might be sharing this big project with so many people, and so you don't really know what's going on. If you do try to govern it, you end up kind of frustrating all these groups, and it ends up slowing them down. So these are the sorts of problems that are driving people to adopt either hub and spoke or data mesh architectures. And honestly, we fully believe that these are the right approaches to solving and unlocking this sort of challenge at scale. The problem is you can't just go and buy a mesh, right? You have to build one. And to build one, you need tools that actually support it. They need to be native. They need to be able to support these architectural patterns. So that's exactly why we're excited about this space and why we're also excited to launch the DBT Mesh solution. Now, Tristan mentioned this earlier. This has been a focus of ours, and we want to make sure that we're supporting these types of patterns as we see all of you adopting them as well. So the DBT Mesh solution is not a product, and it's not a single feature. It's really 3 things. It's a solution that's made up of an architectural pattern, sort of an organizational pattern, if you will. It is a set of supporting features and experiences. And third is a set of best practices. These are best practices that are going to help you build a mesh that can scale and grow for your organization. So let's take a look at some of the components within the solution. I'm going to use our DAG as, once again, a great way for us to talk about how this comes together. So let's say this looks like a pretty modest project, and you may have started here, and as you're growing, you're deciding, how does this look and how does this kind of expand, and we see where the spaghetti ends up going to. But let's say instead that you kind of say, well, I want to tackle this, and maybe there's ways that I can split the project. And so one of the things that we've noticed people do is you'll kind of create these 3 different projects. Maybe you have some domain projects. It's not something we've encouraged. In fact, we've actually discouraged it, because usually splitting things, you're probably using packages to do this. It's probably more complex than the benefit that it provides. So we discouraged it, but we always told you that the thinking will evolve, and we're going to find a way to make sure that we can do this. And if we do it, we'll do it naturally. Well, we did figure this out, and it turns out the answer to this, a very natural extension, is to use ref, but it's now cross-project ref. So what this means is now this picture can make sense. You can break out these projects, and let's say you have your foundational project and your domain projects, but now they can each reference each other. And that means across projects, you can go and understand the same benefits that you know for ref, which is helping you understand dependencies and help us understand and enforce sort of the model orchestration and the ordering. But you can do that in a much more distributed fashion and federated way. So with that pattern, you can now split for either a mesh or for a hub and spoke architecture. And all of your domain teams are going to be happy because they can run at their own speed. They can go and develop as they need. So a big part of this is that you've got independence, you've got self-management, and you can kind of pace at your own needs. Now, layering on top of this are the governance constructs that we first introduced in version 1.5. So these little shields here are meant to represent sort of the kind of governance aspects of how you put this together. You can use model contracts, which is a great way to ensure that the data that you say you're putting out there matches, and the results actually match for your downstream consumers. It's really important. You can use versioning, which is going to be easier for you to kind of smooth upgrades, and some of these federated users know that you kind of have the same name, but we've got changes in versions, so they're using the version that they know makes sense for them. And then you can also use deprecations, very similar to versions, but in this case, informing people of your plans to take some versions out and what your long-term plan and timing is for support. So really nice place that the governance lays into the solution. On top of that you notice the boxes here, are for the interfaces. So just a minute ago, I introduced the Cloud CLI, and we talked about the IDE. Every one of your teams might have a different choice of what they want to use. And in previous times, you'd have to all coordinate on a single project and use the same tools. But now with these types of tools, it's your choice. You can have the domain team use the IDE. You can have your centralized team continue to use a CLI with their own code editors. You can even have your business teams, let's say, just using Tableau on top of their semantic layer. So really nice way for giving choice and making sure that none of your teams have to compromise on what tools that they use. Now, bringing this all together is Explorer. So I introduced Explorer, and I'm so excited about it, but it applies in so many places. So in this case, Explorer lets you do things like zoom out of your project and see how the project dependencies look at this level. Maybe you want to go drill down into one of your domain projects that you're using and understand what's happening in finance. You can even kind of drill across, if you will, or zoom across and look at one of the other projects that you're referencing. And within that, maybe you go drill down and look at a specific model. This is the beauty and power of Explorer, and it's what makes me so excited about it, because I see it every time I see it and see people using it. It's phenomenal. So I want to show it to you live, and instead of me doing this one, I'm actually going to introduce Jeremy Cohen, who's our lead product manager for the mesh. He's going to walk you through it.
Thanks, Luis. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here. Luis gave me 5 minutes to show you dbt mesh end to end. We're going to do it together. Are you watching closely? Yeah. Luis, roll the tape. All right, we've got 3 teams now at our Jaffle shop. Enterprise scale, mini enterprise scale, 6 pizzas, I guess. We've got finance, we've got marketing, and we've got a Jaffle platform at the heart of it all. Do we have video playing?
We do.
Oh, amazing. So here we've got our 3 projects, which we're going to be working in together. We can take a look, as Luis mentioned, at the lineage across projects. Now, these arrows going across each project, these are the cross-project references that we were mentioning. Pretty exciting. We'll take a look at that in just a second. But as Luis mentioned, we're not ready to have those references just yet without some new constructs in DBT for model governance, for being able to make a set of guarantees about which models are public, which are the interfaces that other teams should be taking a stable and mature dependency on, and which are my team's implementation details, the building blocks that we have on the way there. Now, within those public models, we can have model contracts, as mentioned. This governs the shape of the data set being produced, the column names, the data types, constraints enforceable by the data platform at build time. So we're never going to be able to build a model that doesn't satisfy its contract. Let's try. So if we were to change the data type, for example, of this count food items column from Boolean to numeric, maybe just take away the drink orders column, because who needs it, and add something that no one was really expecting to be there after all, when we go to build this model in development, not even in CI, not even in production, when we've incidentally broken someone else's dashboard downstream, we're going to see right away that this model failed to satisfy its contract. We're going to understand that there's someone else downstream in a different DBT project, in a different tool entirely, who's counting on us. That's what it means to be the producer of a stable set of APIs. DBT gives us these governance constructs to manage the life cycle of developing these models from beginning to end, all the way through to a new model version and deprecation. But let's take off our producer's hat, put on our data consumer hat, because we live in a DBT mesh. There are people who are depending on us just as we depend on other people. And in this case, we're going to have a reference to a public model in a different project. This is going to be the stage products model coming to us from the Jaffle platform. And our order items model has a reference to it. We can trust that this reference, that the columns we're pulling out of it, are going to be reliable because we know it has a contract defined. So if we need to add some logic about product type, maybe we only want products that are beverages or Jaffles, incidentally the only 2 things we sell, but you never know, we can write that and know that that column's name and data type are not going to change willy-nilly. It's not going to be pulled out from under us. And when we go to write that reference to that model in another project, it's just ref. It's ref with a project name and with a model name. We can compile it, we can preview it, and it all just works in the DBT Cloud IDE. But I know what you're saying. I don't want to use the DBT Cloud IDE. I learned Vim over the holidays, and now I want to try it out. So I can do the same thing in VS Code. I can write the same ref, add the same filter. I can type a command, compile this model, and it's all going to just work because my development is being backed by the platform in DBT Cloud. Not too shabby. Now, I'm going to run this order items model. I'm going to run its children, the orders model as well. And if you've really been paying attention, you'll notice that I never successfully built an entire model the entire time I've been working. And yet this is going to just work. There are references to models in other projects upstream. There are references to other models within my own project, and I don't have to build them because I haven't changed them. That's deferral. That's cross-project ref. That's the development experience in DBT Cloud anywhere you want to be doing it. Finally, because I should own my models all the way from development through to deployment, through to production, I need a way to trigger my models to build as soon as those upstream platform models have finished building themselves. This, coming very soon to DBT Cloud, is a wicked easy way to do that. I trigger my job to start as soon as my upstream dependencies have finished building theirs. That's it. Coming to DBT Cloud very soon. Thanks, everyone.
That was awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. So all those features that you just saw in action, they are available for you now. The contract work is obviously GA, but all the things that we've been talking about, cross-project ref, DBT Explorer, the Cloud CLI, all these things are available. Please, please come check them out. If you want to see more exciting demos from Jeremy, he's doing a session where we'll talk further about this and all the scaling collaboration work, honestly. That's at 11 a.m. at the main stage. So please take a look, share your feedback. We'd love to hear more about it. There was one more thing I wanted to talk about before we end Mesh, and that's that we're thinking about how the partitioning that we're talking about can lead to new job synchronization challenges. And so we believe that our job scheduler can really help in this space. So we're working on some DBT-tailored orchestration capabilities specifically for the Mesh environment. I mean, they'll be applicable to others as well, but I think you're going to really see some benefit here in the Mesh side. One of the first things we're working on, for example, that we're showing here, is the ability to trigger on job completion. So you can imagine how this can help you sort of set up dependency chains, make it a lot easier to make sure that things are being done in the right order. So we have a lot more ideas like this one. So this is one that you'll see very soon, be coming out in preview. Would love to show you more about these, so please check back, and we can talk about how we can help you orchestrate your Mesh as well. All right, so I want to come back to our analysis diagram, if you will, and sort of bring it together. What you've now seen is that it really takes putting all these three levels of complexity, taking them apart, understanding them, and making sure that they build on each other to solve your complexity problems. One of the first things you need to make sure you start with is the simple workflows. That's the core of everything you do. It's what brings your developers together, builds your data products. So start there, make sure you've got the right best practices. Make sure you're promoting collaboration across your teams. Use shared constructs, use the context that we talked about, build metrics. These are things that are going to help you make sure that your teams are collaborating well. And then finally, build for scale. That means use the right patterns, build the right architectures, and build the right type of approach that's going to help you scale. So please remember, DBT Labs is here to help you in this data journey. It is a journey that you're going to be on, and we remain dedicated to making sure that we provide a platform that helps you empower everyone in your organization at all these levels. So with that, I do want to welcome to the stage one of our customers that's been going through this type of journey, and we're going to hear more about how they've been scaling their data practice with DBT. So please welcome to the stage, we have two members of Fifth Third Bank. We have Kaylee and Ben. Kaylee and Ben. Thank you for coming. I think we're going to bring some chairs out. We're going to bring some chairs.
Give us some time.
Oh, you want this? Oh, okay. You sure? Okay, if we're going to have that back. Oh, look at this. Real true fireside chat. This is what makes the fireside chat exciting. Thank you. All right. I even have some questions for you. Well, thank you both for joining us. I really appreciate you telling a story. I thought we'd start with just introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about Fifth Third Bank.
Sure. I'll go first. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening if you're on the phone. My name's Kaylee Lavarini. I've been at the bank for about 3.5 years. Currently, I'm Director of Agile Product Ownership, and I lead our data strategy, our modern data strategy space.
Good morning, I'm Ben Rottinghouse. I lead our data engineering and data governance teams at Fifth Third. I've been at the bank 15 years, so a little more history than Kaylee at the bank. And for those that don't know, Fifth Third, it's one of the 15 largest or so banks in the nation. It's headquartered in Cincinnati, which is where Kaylee and I work out of, with kind of our primary footprint all the way from Michigan down through the Midwest into Florida and the Southeast region.
Great, great, thank you. All right, so let's start with sort of data at Fifth Third Bank. Could you tell us just background about what data's looked like at Fifth Third's?
Yeah, sure. So I'll cover this. Like I said, a little more tenure than Kaylee at the bank, so I've seen and lived a lot of this while I've been there. You know, as a larger financial institution, pretty big bank, right? A lot of our history probably similar to a lot of other larger organizations, right? So we've had a data warehouse that's been around for well over 20 years. That data warehouse, centrally built, managed by a central team, and has really been the core of what has driven a lot of our data and analytics at the bank. So whether that be regulatory reporting, compliance reporting, driving customer insights, marketing, all of those different use cases, really a core of those have all been historically driven off of our data warehouse. As you can imagine, also in a heavily scrutinized industry like the financial institution that we are, compliance regulatory requirements really dictate that data governance is a huge focus for us. And so, as you can imagine, with a warehouse that's been around for over 20 years, most of the modern data management, data governance capabilities weren't around back when we started that warehouse, right? And so we've had to bolt on, add on, and spend really an extreme amount of time and continue to adding governance on top of pre-existing data pipelines and existing data that lives in our environment. So really been a struggle and again, a lot of work, but necessary work. Back around 2017, as with many at that time, we went down a route trying to build out a data lake. Had some moderate success. We had some beneficial pieces that came from it, but really didn't get the benefit that we were hoping to get, right? We had grandiose plans of having all data from all of our systems feeding into our data lake, rebuilding our entire data warehouse with all of our compliance and regulatory reporting, and again, only really had limited success. So really we're kind of back with our warehouse, still being the core of what drives our data and analytics at the bank.
I guess it sounds like the journey wasn't always what you were expecting it was supposed to be. So given where you are now, like where'd you go?
I'll take this one.
Yeah.
So kind of after that, right, we're back at having this central warehouse, right, which has served us for a couple of decades. We started what we called our self-service program, right? And that was a shift to focus not on data production, but on the data consumers instead. So trying to move forward past data lake, move the needle in some way, shape, or form. And so that manifested as in we're going to invest in key technology for data consumers that lets them do what they need to do efficiently, effectively, whatever it is. When we started to roll that program out and actually talk to people about how it was going, the voice of the customer kind of went in a couple different ways, right? We love the new technology, it's easy to use, it solves our problems, but like there were these pervasive themes that we kept hearing over and over again. I don't trust the data, I can't find quality, you know, I have no idea who owns it, is this even the source of truth, like should I be using this? 1,000 other things, and they're really just basic questions that, you know, regardless of what industry you come from, you're probably going to hear those same themes. Put a pin in that, right? Because that's kind of what's going on internally at the bank at the time. Scale back and just look at our industry in general. So Ben kind of started to hit on it. Heavily scrutinized, heavily regulated, but with a supply chain that's completely driven by data. If you think about manufacturing, I can go to the shop floor and watch a car being made, right? Parts come together, you build modules, you put them together, you assemble a car, you ship it off to the customer. If you go open a deposit account, like no one goes to the back of the bank in the vault and like carves out your deposit account for you. Like that's not how it works. The origination of that account, the funding of that account, the servicing of that account is all driven digitally and with data. So you have all these internal rumblings of like, man, this is like really hard to do, but at the same time, it's also the thing that drives our entire supply chain. We have going on, and it's up on the screen here, what a lot of companies have faced, which is it's a supply and demand problem against your entire supply chain. So on one side, you have your source systems that are exponentially growing. The number of systems, the sheer amount of data that those systems are providing, continuing to grow. And then on the other hand, you have the demand for data internally and externally continuing to grow. I always joke, it's 2023, there's not a person at the bank, whether they were hired to have a data rich role or not, that they don't use data or consume data or produce data in some way, shape, or form. So you have two ends of this supply chain, the supply and demand just exponentially growing, and this antiquated thing in the middle that has been a monolith that served the business for a couple decades in the way that it exists now, that does the traditional ETL, run the warehouse, be the intermediary between the supply and the demand of information. We kind of ran into the challenge probably a couple years ago where we realized we needed to find a solution to be able to scale that.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to hear you describe it in sort of these economic terms, because you're saying supply and demand. It sounds big. Frankly, I'm not sure what that means, but can you tell me more? What does that mean, and how do you solve this challenge?
Yeah, so this is actually my favorite thing to talk about. I could talk about it for 24 hours straight, I think. What Fifth Third did in this case, I think, was really unique and makes me really proud to work for a company that is invested in this way, and I'll talk a little bit through that. What we did was the leaders at the time put together what was a multi-slide version of, we called it our data strategy, super creative. And our data strategy pulled from a lot of the components of data mesh and federation and scaling that central monolith by creating federated teams that own and produce data and have really strong relationships with data consumers. And then really where I think we made the right decision was after that vision came out, the leadership team at the time invested in, we took like 6 or 7 of some of our best developers in the organization and put them together on a team and said, here's the vision, go figure out how to do it, right? Which for a company of our scale that is as risk adverse as it is, for them to do that and invest in that way said a lot about how serious they were about wanting to modernize. And so that team, I got to be a part of it, which was really cool, spent about 6 to 8 months doing research and development. Ultimately, that's how DBT came into the picture for us. We started building proof of concepts that turned into minimum viable products for things that now run or will be the standard for how we ingest and transform data and create data producers out of people that maybe didn't even know how to spell SQL a couple weeks ago. That's a little bit of a stretch. But you know, that investment early on then led to us being able to launch product teams, which is now the space that I get to lead, around these capabilities. So collecting and ingesting data using data contracts, transforming data and being able to observe and manage your data pipeline using data contracts, offering a 360-degree view of data quality, catalog, all of our different metadata tools, aggregating those together, providing some level of registration and governance process around data products. And then the other thing that we did that was really unique in this space to overcome some of these challenges, and we'll talk about this in our breakout session, is we invested in 2 full Agile teams that kind of deploy out to our federated teams. So if you're going to start to build a data product, you're people going through a change, and you need the support. And so one of the ways that we have invested in giving you that support is by offering peer coaches, peer programmers, get down and dirty with you in tools like DBT to really co-create the first pieces of your data product code to set you up for success in the future.
Gotcha. So I'm hearing it's, in some ways you kind of solved some challenges. You ended up with some different ones along the way. Really interested about sort of this federated area and kind of the governance and people side of it. So, I mean, how do you envision scaling now and solving this problem at scale?
Yeah, like you hit on, we actually introduced some new challenges, right? When we had a centralized organization doing all of this work, data governance was actually a little easier. It was still hard, but you at least had one team to go to for that, right? And in this federated environment where you're not gonna have multiple teams of teams, potentially even building out data products, governance is actually more difficult in that model, right? And so on top of a lot of what Kaylee talked about, right, our investment has been how do we automate, how do we simplify, how do we give people the tools and technologies to make it simpler so that those people who don't know how to spell SQL can actually write SQL and build a data product and own a pipeline themselves. But with that, again, the technology is only a piece of that. And so we bring in some of our tools, Snowflake, DBT, and others help with that. But that governance still continues to be a critical piece of it too. So we're honestly still in this journey and still trying to solve some of this, right? And I think it ties very well with a lot of the product conversation that you shared earlier, Luis, right? Trying to get to a point that we have multiple teams of people that need to be able to collaborate together, that need to build their own data product, publish it as a true product, and then having others consume from that, right? This has to be easier for the consumers at the end of the day too, right? They're coming from a world where all their data was in one spot and they knew how to, even if it was difficult, knew how to get to the data warehouse. In this model, you're gonna have multiple of these teams are gonna have to consume from. And so solving challenges like interoperability between them, right? Which is if Kaylee has a data product and I have a data product, I might need to be able to join them. How are you gonna solve for that? How are you gonna help make sure that you have some amount of consistency when you have multiple teams that are building these out? And so we've been really thrilled over the last couple months to be able to partner with DBT Labs. working through some of the beta of both DBT Mesh and DBT Explorer. Really great things. Again, the team's been great to work with to be able to take feedback from us and vice versa, listening to the needs that we had. And so really excited to be able to start to roll that out to our users here as we're continuing this journey and trying to get it in the hands of our data producers. So really excited for all of you to be able to see it too. Again, it really looks like it's a great product and is going to help us in our journey for sure.
I love hearing that, obviously, as you can imagine, hearing how that's worked for you. All right, so maybe to sum it up, if you had to take one thing and kind of give us one takeaway, I don't know which one of you would like to
I'll take this one.
Yeah.
This is my favorite thing. I'm going to make the assumption a lot of you are you're technologists at heart, you're engineers at heart, and that's probably what brings you here. Changes like this, like especially when we start to talk about data mesh and federation, the level of impact to the people in the enterprise is massive. And I think Ben and I will talk about this mostly about people in our breakout at 11. But people have crazy emotions over change, right? And so you're introducing data mesh. They don't even know what that means. You're saying, well, we're federating. They're like, wait, you used to do this before, and now we have to do it. What does that mean? So there's crazy levels of anxiety and angst and emotion that go with that. And I think the thing that we've learned is technology and process is for people. And then on top of that, it's investing in the other things like training and peer programming teams and really human-centric development that are going to make people feel more comfortable and make this change actually possible. So at the end of the day, it's really, you have to be empathetic to the people that are ultimately going through the change.
That's great. I want to thank you both for sharing your story with us all today. Thank you, everybody, and please welcome them. Thank you. Really great to hear customer success story and also on all these great technologies that we're looking at. So before we end, I just want to say thank you. I hope you're as excited as I am about all these announcements today. There's so much more to learn about. Please go check out the sessions and come talk to us. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Quinn, who's going to take us home.